Let me start by reiterating the heartfelt condolences extended by the South African government on behalf of President Jacob Zuma and the people of South Africa following the disgraceful attack on the United Nations Common Compound in Mogadishu on 19 June 2013 that left 15 people killed, including 2 South Africans. In this regard, the South African government also wishes to express its sincere gratitude to the Somali armed forces and peacekeeping troops of the AU mission in Somalia, who came to the assistance of those international development and humanitarian workers trapped in the United Nations compound during the attack. It is tragic that the United Nations, the international organization promoting peace, social and economic development, and humanitarian assistance to the Somali government and the people of that country, has come under attack. South Africans is certain that the United Nations office in Somalia will continue its sterling work from its base in Mogadishu in support of the Somali government and the people of the country despite the temporary setback. The attack comes at a time when sound progress has been registered towards the establishment of stability and sustainable social and economic development in Somalia, and while the Somali government remains in need of the support of the international community, including the United Nations. South African government further urges all political groups outside the political process in Somalia to renounce violence and raise the concern with the federal Somali government in a constructive and reconciliatory manner. Looking at the development in the Middle East region, the South African government remains deeply concerned about the continuing violence and deteriorating human rights situation in Syria, and we have constantly called on all parties to the conflict to stop the violence, as well as respect and protect the rights of the Syrian people. In this regard, we have noted a report released by the United Nations Commissioner of Human Rights indicating that 93,000 Syrian people have died since the start of the conflict in March 2011. Therefore, we condemn all human rights abuses, in particular violations of the rights of vulnerable groups such as women and children. We have closely monitored the meeting of the G8 leaders in Northern Ireland on 18 June 2013, and disappointed that the meeting failed to agree on all aspects pertaining to the peaceful resolution of the conflict in Syria. There was, however, agreement on the need for the Geneva meeting. As South Africa, we are concerned that any delay in the proposed negotiation in Geneva will have severe consequences for the prospects of achieving peace in Syria. In this regard, we cannot agree with the precondition that negotiations are not possible until President Assad steps down. Even though the South African conflict stretched over a much longer period, and the United Nations declared apartheid system a crime against humanity, representatives of the regime were not excluded from negotiations that led to a democratic settlement in South Africa. We therefore cannot agree with the position taken by some sectors of the opposition who are refusing to negotiate by using President al-Assad as an excuse. We have delivered the same message to the Syrian government that negotiations should commence without any precondition. South Africa reaffirmed that it is essential that the political path be supported by united, cohesive international efforts towards a Syrian-led negotiated political transition aimed at establishing a democratic, pluralistic society in which minorities are protected. South Africa rejects any call for regime change and external military interference or any action not in line with the Charter of the United Nations. South Africa remains concerned about the continuing militarization of the conflict in Syria and notes with concern the decision by the United States to arm the Syrian Free Army. The South African government reiterates that there can be no military solution to the conflict in Syria and that the only hope for the Syrian people lies in the willingness of all parties to the conflict to immediately put an end to the violence and start engaging each other constructively with the aim of reaching an agreement on a political transition based on the Geneva Communique of June 2012. Still in the Middle East region, you will recollect that on 14 June 2013, Islamic Republic of Iran hosted election to elect a new president following the culmination of the two-term office of the incumbent president of Iran, Dr. Mohammad Ahmadinejad. Against this background, Dr. Hassan Rouhani was declared the winner of the election, having recorded 50.1% of the votes. The president-elect will be inaugurated into office on the 3rd of August 2013. President Zuma has extended his congratulations and best wishes to President-elect Rouhani and the people of the Islamic Republic of Iran and expressed the hope that relations between South Africa and Iran would be further consolidated under his leadership. South Africa maintains good level of cooperation with Iran across varied fields, both bilaterally and unilaterally and multilaterally. In this regard, the President referred specifically to the 11th meeting of South Africa-Iran Joint Commission, which is scheduled to be hosted in Pretoria on 10th October 2013, as a mechanism to consolidate relations and exchange views on international and regional development. Following Dr. Rouhani's election, the South African government was encouraged by the resolve expressed by President-elect Rouhani concerning his incoming administration's increased support for engagement more actively with the P+1 regarding negotiations over Iran's disputed nuclear program. In this regard, President Zuma also requested Dr. Rouhani to give priority to resolving all outstanding issues with the International Atomic Energy Agency as far as his country's nuclear program is concerned. On the outcome of SADC summit in Maputo, ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude by drawing your attention closer home. The SADC summit was held in Maputo on 15 June 2013, with the focus on political developments in Zimbabwe. The summit noted that credible election would have to be held soon and under appropriate conditions as soon as possible. In this regard, the summit decided on the way forward as follows: urging the three parties to the global political agreement to undertake immediate measures to create a conducive environment for the holding of peaceful, free, fair, and credible elections. Summit further urged the three parties to the GPA and the Zimbabwean Electoral Commission, in particular, to finalize preparation for the holding of the forthcoming 2013 harmonized elections, and reiterated his call for the lifting of all forms of sanctions against Zimbabwe. Lastly, I would like to inform you that a media briefing that would specifically address President Obama's visit to South Africa has been scheduled for Monday, 24 June 2013. I thank you very much. Of course, it's of grave concern to us that a country like Britain, a friendly country, should involve in spying on South African embassies and South African diplomats. But the matter has been raised bilaterally. Whether this is going to come up with President Zuma's an engagement later this year, I cannot give you any information about that. But it's a matter that we have expressed concern, and I'm sure that our Department of State Security would be dealing with this issue with the counterparts in Britain. President Zuma will concentrate on African issues. That will be the main issue of the visit, and see how the United States will assist in the development on the continent. But I'm sure other issues will arise, but I can't tell you whether the Syrian issue will arise at all. I cannot tell you. I'm not sure what the agenda of the meeting is going to be. As far as protests are concerned, of course, South Africa is a free democratic country, and anyone who wants to protest will have the right to protest for whatever reason the protest is going to be. But I cannot say. Of course, it's important that the United States, that the President of the United States of America is visiting South Africa. We have very good political, economic relations with the United States. And we think the United States is an important player, not only for Africa, but for the continent as a whole. And I think that we would benefit from discussing with the United States the problems of the continent of Africa. The voters' roll hadn't been completed, and some of the reforms as far as the electoral process is concerned was not passed by Parliament. And that date became a bit of a problem. And I think the meeting of SADC urged President Mugabe to apply to court for an extension of about 14 or 15 days. And I think the Minister of Justice was tasked to make the application to get the court to extend the date, to say that while not dismissing or not violating the court ruling that the election should take place before the end of July, but to appeal to the court for an extension of 14 days. And I think that has been done. There was a feeling that that should be done on behalf of the GPA government as a whole. But I'm not sure what is the latest on that here. If the court upholds the decision that the election to take place by 21st of July, it will create some problems because in terms of the new constitution, there has to be a 30-day for the voter registration, which would end, I think, on the 10th of July. But then the candidate list will close here on about the 25th of June. Which will create some logistical problem and some constitutional problem, because in terms of the constitution, once the date for the nomination closes, then automatically the registration also closes. So that there are some constitutional problems there, and I think that the court will have to look at it in a very favorable way, that look, although not undermining the court's decision, as such, the Constitutional Court's decision. But I think any reasonable court will see that there are certain constitutional problems and certain logistical problems will arise, and therefore an extension of 14 days or 15 days will not be an unreasonable request. And we think a reasonable court would allow for an extension. I'm told in the past there has been such cases where in the local government election in Zimbabwe, an extension was sought by the courts, and the courts allowed that extension. So we don't know how the MDC is going to react, but we believe that, we hope that the court would grant the extension, yeah. The South African troops are on the way there now. And there are 3 countries that have agreed to send troops: Tanzania, Malawi, and South Africa. I think the Tanzanian troops are on the ground. South Africa, of course, is in the process of sending troops. And I think they may be on the way probably by now. I'm not sure about that. The South African troops is part of the intervention brigade that was agreed to with the United Nations. And of course, it was going to be a peacekeeping, but also will have mandate of, have some sort of an offensive mandate to deal with rebel groups in the DRC. Those 2 people have been kidnapped. I think the names have been released to the families. We are trying to find as much information as we can about the whereabouts of the 2 people kidnapped. And our embassy in Riyadh is very much active. Our ambassador has been there. And we are in contact with the government of Yemen. So far, there's no information as to the whereabouts or who kidnapped them and the reason for the kidnap. But we are doing everything possible and in contact with the family to try and locate the whereabouts of those people kidnapped. And we are getting the full cooperation of the government of Yemen. We are working very closely with the government of Yemen to try to locate the whereabouts of the 2 kidnapped people. So far, there hasn't been any information forthcoming from the kidnappers themselves as to who they are and what is the reason of kidnapping. But our embassy from Riyadh, together with the government of Yemen, are fully seized with the situation. We are doing everything possible on a daily basis to try to locate the people that were kidnapped, the South Africans kidnapped, and there was rumors that they were taken by Al-Qaeda, but we could not confirm those rumors. There's no evidence at all that these people were kidnapped by the Al-Qaeda group.